preview.
Dante, your fate is decided. Everlasting damnation for your sins.
But that's not possible. The bishop assured us.
Come, soon you'll be joined by those whose lives you have ruined, whose souls you have damned.
I will not let my sins damn those dear to me. I will redeem myself.
Many games borrow disparate elements from other popular entries in a genre, mixing familiar pieces together into something new and exciting. Very few games attempt to emulate the source material as blatantly as Dante's Inferno does, though. In this case, the muse is God of War, and Dante's quest to save his forsaken bride from Lucifer's grabby hands feels an awful lot like Kratos' latest adventure in the Netherworld. This isn't an inherently bad thing, but Dante's adventure fails to live up to its lofty inspiration.
King Richard wants us to babysit 3,000 prisoners? That is the king's command?
He intends to negotiate the exchange of these prisoners for the return of the true cross.
Negotiate with heretics?
In the early going, you'll be hard-pressed to separate Dante's Inferno from its superb inspiration. The descent into hell from your earthly home is overloaded with rising landmarks beckoning you from a distance, gargantuan monsters begging to be eviscerated in blood-splattering ways, and epic environments that hint at the impressive scale of your adventure into the heart of darkness. For the first few hours, you will stare in awe at your impressive surroundings, and the feeling of déjà vu is more than welcomed. The first few circles of hell are bursting with disgusting imagery that paints an eerily accurate representation of the reprehensible land of damned spirits. Lust and greed are two of the deadly sins you will traverse through early in the game, and they are utterly repulsive in their portrayal of these crimes against humanity. This may sound like a bad thing, but the visuals are so shocking and unrestrained that it only builds upon the foreboding atmosphere of your quest. In Lust, you battle condemned prostitutes with exaggerated parts of typical female anatomy, and though it's gross, it certainly makes you believe you are truly traveling through this corrupted land. As you dive deeper into hell, though, very few disturbing abominations await. Early on, you fight grotesque prostitutes, incredibly obese monsters who typify the gluttony mentality, and even an army of unbaptized babies that are sure to disturb even the most jaded of players. But once you get past the first few hours, the imaginative enemies fade away, giving way to predictable hack and slash. Battles and levels blur together, resulting in an often monotonous trek through the 9 circles of the damned. And while it is certainly shocking fighting these horrible beings when you first encounter them, they stay with you the entire adventure, which diminishes the initial hint of repulsion you tasted. It certainly makes sense that you would fight prostitutes when in Lust. It makes a lot less sense that they continue to show up in Anger, Heresy, and every other circle. The epic level design from the early stages also disappears after the first few hours. Initially, you would see a titanic being far off in the distance, and you knew you would have to fight it when you finally made your way through the obstacles between you. But that feeling of making progress through the depths of the underworld quickly goes away, replaced by a series of smallish rooms that don't even hint at the larger world around you. Unlike God of War, Dante's Inferno fails to evoke the feeling that you are a tiny person surrounded by monstrous creatures in a hostile land. Aside from the constant screams from the damned who line the walls, it's often easy to forget where your adventure takes place as you dutifully march from one area to the next without any noteworthy encounters to break up the drudgery. The combat is also lifted wholesale from God of War, and, like the enemy design and level layout, it too only gives a taste of the source material without ever doing justice to the real thing. Battles are vicious and bloody, letting you tear into the flesh of your angry enemies with reckless abandon. It is certainly fun slicing and dicing your way through these despicable beings, but the combat has a few flaws that make it a bit annoying. When you start a combo, Dante will see it through to completion even while you're slamming on another button so you can avoid an imminent blow from your enemy. Also, you have a projectile attack you can use at any time. This works well when fighting one-on-one battles, but the auto-targeting is way off, making it a pain to hit a specific enemy when you're surrounded by a seething gang. There's a clear distinction between the quality of the first third of Dante's Inferno, the middle third, and the end. It starts out as an epic adventure with gloriously disturbing imagery, then loses the imaginative aspects but still has enough fun combat to keep you motivated. But the final third of the game is awful. For the final few hours of the game, level design and clever enemy battles have been completely removed in favor of objective-based combat on floating platforms. You fight the same enemies as before with artificial constraints tossed in, such as don't use magic. This is not fun in the slightest and feels like a way to pad the game out so it doesn't end quite so abruptly. It's a shame the entirety of Dante's Inferno couldn't match the imagination presented in the first few hours, because it seemed like this game was going to be a worthwhile alternative to the superb God of War series. But most of the game falls flat, and the final few hours are tedious and uninspired. This is a pale imitation of the real thing, and though it's fun for a while, there are much better action games out there.